Hello my friends, this is Eric Merritt at DAZ 3D, and in this video we're going to talk about the Posing tab. The Posing tab can be found in the Pose and Animate activity, and we're going to be talking about the presets and editor page both in this video. So let's start off by just telling you where I'm at here. We just loaded in the Subdragon, and you can find that right here. You can double click here and then add it that way, or you can go to Files and hit Animals and then load it that way. Just double click and load that in. And let's add the surface preset for that. Let's click on them and find a surface or material presets that are made for him, and it's this one here. So we double click on it. Now we've got a little better looking Subdragon. Now let's go back to our Pose and Animate presets into the Posing tab, and let's look at a couple of these poses that I've done. Alright, so let's just apply those one at a time by double clicking on them and take a peek at them. Those are kind of fun. This one, he's coming out of some hole or something right up at you. He's going to take your head off. It's a fun pose. Okay, so let's go back to here. And these poses took me, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes a piece. And that's just kind of me goofing around, thinking, oh, that'd be a fun one, or that'd be a fun one, and then just grabbing it and dragging it. So let's show you how I did those. We'll create our own pose, and then we'll save it out as a preset and kind of go full circle that way. Okay, there's a variety of ways to pose, and we're going to go through all of them. The first way, the way I do most of my posing, at least to kind of rough it in, is just use the IK. And that's where you just grab onto something and drag it around. So you can just drag the tail. Let me do that again without moving them around. Lift that up. Take that one. Let's move it forward. Let's move it backwards like he's taking a big step. Let's bring his head up a little bit. Make it kind of in a weird angle. So that's using IK and just grabbing onto things and moving it around. You can grab on about anywhere and move it around. It's kind of fun, huh? So another way is when you click on something like right here, you can use the universal manipulation tools right here, these little handles, and rotate it, right? Easy enough. You can also move it like this, and you'll notice it'll try to pull it around, also using the IK. IK stands for inverse kinematics, and we won't get into exactly what that means now, but just to know that it kind of tries to move naturally. And then you'll notice as I move that around, you also see these right here move. So you can use the sliders. And you've got the ones that come up by default of the rotation, but you can certainly use anything else. The scale, I don't know that you're going to use much, but you can do it. If you can see the effect, oh, there it is. You can scale that down, get it pinched a little bit. But rotation's the one for posing is the one you're generally going to use, so it shows up by default. Okay, so you've got those two ways. You also have, oh, this is free rotate right here when that little yellow ball shows up. So you move it around. You notice all three of your sliders up in the upper left corner are moving around as we do that. There's also a tool called the Pose tool that you can turn off in your viewport options menu here. Show Pose tool, and it shows up in the upper left here, and it shows you the limits of your each bone. So if you select on this one, it's going to be different than this one. And you notice the deep red area and the green and the blue that shows up there. That shows you where the limits are. And you can grab these as well, these rings, and move them. You notice it's moving the viewport, and the slider's also moving the bend channel there. Alright, now when you move it down here, so let's select, well, let's just see how it stops? See how it won't go past that red? It's kind of topped out right there. So as soon as it hits that, and you push that, it tries to bend in another way. Watch. And now it's going to kind of pop out to the side. So those limits prevent it from doing things that at least the artist thought was unnatural. Now let's talk about pinning a little bit. If you want to move something around, like watch what happens when I move this tail. If I drag it and pull up, it starts pulling the whole dragon up. But if I pin the hip right here, I can use this little thing and I can pin its translation so it won't move up and down. Then I can just drag it anywhere I want and it won't affect anything past the hip. and that's really handy on feet and other things. So there's two types of pinning, and let's show you that. Let's try to pin this foot. We're going to pin the translation and we're going to pin the rotation, and on this other foot we're going to pin just the translation. And now we're going to lift up on the hip, and you'll see that one is still free to rotate and the other one is not rotating at all, but they're both trying to stay in place. Okay, so that's pinning. Now let's just save a preset. Now we've changed this thing enough. Let's change a little more drastically. Let's go in here and we'll take this free rotate. We'll move that wing back like it just got knocked back from something up here. And let's take this one and we'll move this one a little bit too. So he's kind of arching back like that. That's kind of a cool pose. Let's put his foot up. Oh, you notice this is pinned, but I can still move it. Now the pins just try to prevent other bones up the chain here from moving it, but you can still move a pinned bone if you grab directly on it. And let's take this and let's reach this one forward. Take that one. Let's pull it back a little bit. Anyway, that's kind of an awkward looking pose. Kind of looks like he just got knocked down or something. Let me show you one more thing before we save this pose out, and that is how we reset the default position of a bone. You'll notice if I say, okay, I'll click right here. You click on this little guy right here, you'll see you've got two options on the top before this little break here. Restore selected items pose, and if I select that, it'll move that bone to its default position. Now you see that bone is all zeroed out. If I undo that, you'll see how much it changed, quite a bit. And then the other option is restore figure pose, and when I do that, it zeroes out the whole thing. And let me show you that. Alright, so that zeroes it out. Every bone in the whole thing changes back to its default states. I'm going to undo that, and now let's save. Let's go. We've got two options. I've got this little save new preset, pose preset button right here. You can click and get up the dialog, or you can go to File, Save As, and then Pose Preset, and they bring you the same dialog box whichever direction you go. Now saving a pose preset's a little complicated. It's a little confusing, I should say, but let me just show you what I do to make it simple. I go to this little option menu and select All Transforms. Okay, and now it's checked this subdragon, and I expand this out. I look at Properties, go to General, Transforms, Translation, and I check off Xtran and Ztran. And what that does for me is it doesn't remember the X, which is this direction, and Y, I'm sorry, X is this way, and Z positioning of the hip here. And what it does do, though, is it remembers the Y distance from the floor, so its position relative to the floor. And I like that because I want this foot to look like it's sitting on the floor. If I turn that off, the hip, I believe, would be about up here, and it would look completely like he's, well, I guess he's flying, and he can do that, but I want him to have the look that he's got one foot on the floor. So that's why I do that. And if I left the X and Ztran on, what would happen is that no matter where I had my dragon placed in the scene before I added the preset would snap him right back into the center right here, which in many cases I do not want to do. I want to leave him somewhere else in the scene. So let's hit accept, and then we get the default place to save poses in my library presets poses. I'm going to call this off balance, and I'm going to hit save, and then we go back to presets, and then we see our off balance right there. And he works just like any other pose does, and we're good to go. So now we come full circle. We started out with a preset. We went in and showed you all the ways to pose inside of Studio, and then we saved out a preset of our own. That's it, and we'll talk to you next time.